Hey, what's going on, guys? Ahmed here. And did you guys hear that McDonald's is now going to stop serving hamburgers and fries in their Happy Meals? Who would have thought we would see the day, right? But the reason I talk about this, I mean, they just announced this a couple of days ago. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I am seeing that a company as big as McDonald's is pivoting when it sees that the time is right for it to pivot, when it sees that the market is demanding something different than what it has to offer. I think at this point, McDonald's, as big as a company it is doing the right thing and the smart thing by pivoting. And if a huge company like McDonald's can do it and pivot at the time they think is the right time to pivot, then people that are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs with small teams, small businesses, people like you and I, entrepreneurs that I bring on the guest, we can pivot as well. But there's this fear of pivoting because it feels like we're betraying our brand, or we may be betraying our initial focus idea, even our passion. I've seen entrepreneurs that have said that before they were able to pivot, they felt that they were betraying their brand, that they were betraying the company itself, and even as far as betraying some of the people that were working with them. But the truth is that for business to survive, for business to really not only survive but thrive, pivoting is an absolute part of the growth strategy. Now, I want to tell you about some really interesting stories about business pivoting. And one of the most interesting one is Starbucks. I don't know if you know that Starbucks started selling machines and coffee grinders and espresso machines. They didn't start selling coffee. It's only when Howard Schultz came into position and said he wanted to sell coffee now, and that's how we have this giant company that's almost on every street corner. The other really interesting one is Twitter. Twitter actually started as a podcast platform where people could subscribe to their favorite podcast, but they quickly realized that iTunes was going to wipe them out pretty much. The rise of iTunes was strong and powerful. So Twitter at the time decided that they were going to step back, pivot, and now they're one of the largest, if not the only and the most dominant microblogging site that's out there. I mean, we're all familiar with Twitter, right? So we know what they did, but very few people know that Twitter and its founders decided to pivot when they saw that things weren't working. I've been working with a lot of entrepreneurs from all different backgrounds, especially in the tech world for the last few years. And what I'm seeing with entrepreneurs is the lean entrepreneurs are the ones that do find success or have a track record of success, aren't afraid to pivot when the time is right. Now that's really important because they have gone through the process of the fear and the anxiety that comes when you're thinking about pivoting, and they've done it before. So with them, it's always about, and even I advise for entrepreneurs to pivot when the time is right. Now I want to talk about when is the time to pivot. Like, when do you know, or when do you think you should understand that it is now time to pivot? There are telltale signs, and I want to talk about a few of them. One of them is decline in brand loyalty. So let's say you've created a brand that you're seeing initially people really attracted to that brand, people are becoming loyal to the brand, but maybe as things change, you start seeing that the brand loyalty is declining. At that point, it's a good time to look at why that's happening and then possibly come up with a reason to pivot. That might be a good reason to pivot. It might not be the only reason. It might not be the strongest reason, but it's definitely part of the reason of why you would need to pivot. The second thing is market shift. Like, that's huge. If you see that the market is shifting in a certain direction, maybe it's time to pivot, because if your competitors are going in a certain directions, that doesn't mean that you need to follow them, but you definitely need to keep an eye out on that to see what they're seeing. And what they're seeing is absolutely important, because then you can learn from what they're seeing. And if there is a reason for you to pivot, then market shift is definitely one of the big ones. Because if the market shifts and your customers, your clients obviously flow with the market, then you don't want to stay in the same position that you were before. That is the time to pivot. Number three is, and this is a really, really interesting one. There's a company I'm working with right now that works in virtual reality, and the entrepreneur in that company has seen an unexpected opportunity that came from the work that they were doing previously. When they saw that unexpected opportunity come about, that is when they decided to pivot. Now, that is one of the best things for you as an entrepreneur to happen, because if you start seeing an unexpected opportunity that you did not realize before you got into the game, that's incredible, because then you can pivot. But even at that point, fear and anxiety may hold entrepreneurs behind, because we can feel that we are betraying our brand or the initial mission and vision that we created for the company. So again, be able to pull yourself back and don't be afraid to pivot, because as I just told you, there are incredible stories of multi-billion-dollar companies that pivoted when they saw that the market was not going in the direction that they thought it would. And the number 4 reason to pivot, or the number 4 sign that you should pivot, is the gut instinct. That's it. If your gut tells you that it's time to pivot, then most likely it's time to pivot. We underestimate the instinct that we have, the business instinct, the entrepreneurial instinct. We underestimate that, and we don't give enough credit to our instinct that comes from the experience that we've had. Learn to trust your instinct is what I really believe in. And when you can do that, when you can learn to trust your instinct, your gut will tell you if it's the right time to pivot or not. And it always come in signs, right? There's going to be the different things that I talked about, the brand loyalty, the market shift, the other factors. They're going to come, they're going to compound, and then the gut instinct is just going to take a compound effect of all of that and just tell you that now is the time to shift. So that's what I wanted to talk about in terms of pivoting. I think it's an important asset that we as entrepreneurs should not fear and not shy away from. The smartest businesses are the ones that pivot at the right time and then take their business into a different direction. So I hope you enjoyed this video about pivoting. If you have any questions, put your comments down below in the question and comment section, and I'll do my best to answer. Hope you're having a good one. I'll talk to you soon.